We've had a string of failures in many products, and including many I've done. By the way, that's the mark of an organization that also experiments. Okay, the only mark of an organization that also likes to experiment is failure. There is no other mark, because you can't succeed 10 out of 10 times. Only when you have spectacular failures do you know that you also spectacularly experimenting. Okay, we've moved from 3,000 crores top line in 2006 to 35,000 crore top line as of last year. That's a 10x increase. Okay, every 3 to 4 years, Hersh and his colleagues set up a plant which is the world's biggest. The last 3 plants that have been set up have been the world's biggest decorative plants. Okay, so none of that and nothing we do in marketing, okay, or sales, or what Piyush Pandey, with all due respect, okay, is possible without this. So you are selling out crores of emulsions or one product across the country with the same quality, same perfection, okay, at that scale with the number of SKUs you have. Okay, it is impossible to do even half of that without that, being enabled.
Coincidentally, when I was on a flight I was coming back to Bombay to give the CAT exam, and I met this person, and I had this IMS ka book, and I was going through the material, and the guy next to me said कि CAT लिखने जा रहे हो? I said हाँ. He said वही ABC जाना होगा? I said yes ABC जाना है. So he said one thing which really calmed me down in that moment, and I'm going to say it to you, that he said that if you true potential cannot be restrained. Okay? So if you have it in you, you will reach where you must, right?
We'll welcome Hersh Kankare and Gagandeep Kalsi. So Hersh Kankare is the AGM supply chain at Asian Paints. Both of them are I'm Koikor alumnus, and he holds a BE in chemical engineering from Institute of Chemical Technology from Mumbai and a PGDM from IIM Koikor. Before IIM, he worked as a production engineer at Indian Oil. His first stint with Asian Paints was as an imprint summer intern, where he was working on material management process, improving using barcoding technology. He joined full-time via the LEAP program in 2013 and has spent 13 plus years at the company, moving from production management at plants to global procurement and supplier management in petrochemical space to demand planning and forecasting analytics, and now into his current role as supply chain leadership role as AGM at the outsourced product supply chain. He was recognized as the Economic Times Young Leader in 2017. Let's give a round of applause. Now, talking about Gagandeep, he is a VP Home Decor Strategy and New Business at Asian Paints. He holds a BE in Electronics from Mumbai University and a PGDM from IIM Koikor, where he also served on the Placements Committee. He joined Asian Paints as a management trainee in 2006 via the LEAP program and has spent 20 years in the company, starting in field sales across the West and the North divisions, where he grew into a regional manager over 9 years. In 2015, he moved to marketing and brand management, handling interior and exterior paints at the construction chemicals portfolio. In 2020, he moved into strategy and new businesses, leading Asian Paints M&A efforts in decorative lighting, fenestration, and shaping the company's expansion into an end-to-end home decor company. He was elevated to VP in 2025 and continues to lead the decor business alongside strategy and new business development. Can we give a round of applause for him too? The question is for Gagandeep. When you joined Asian Paints from IIM Koikor, what did you think your career is going to look like, and how wrong were you?
My first, tryst with Asian Paints was not in 2006. I did my summers there as well. Okay, so true blue-blooded Asian Paints, because I did my summers in 2005 also in Asian Paints. At that point, I was not running towards Asian Paints as I was running away from something. I was a coder in TCS. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, maybe a little bit wrong with that, but I didn't want to spend, a good part of my career coding in a cubicle, and I knew that's something I'm sure about. Uh, but yeah, and therefore I wanted to make the move. And Asian Paints was one of the three, consumer-facing companies. Some of the three good consumer-facing companies that came to campus that year. And I got through two of them, Asian Paints, ITC, and I chose Asian Paints because the headquarters was Bombay. And that's how the summers happened. Okay, so that's when I got into that project, that summers project, and I had an amazing time. Okay, I had a really good time, and I was in marketing. I was doing the project for marketing, and at that point, the Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai campaign unfolded. Okay, and I remember the buzz on the floor, and the first time they showed the TVC, because whenever the new TVC was made, it was shown to the floor before it went on the airs. Okay, so it was shown, and everybody was. We don't know what has moved us about it, but we are moved by the communication. Okay, it's not about washability. It's not about strain resistance. It's not about color retention. Nothing functional. Okay, and the guy who was leading it at that point, one guy I really look up to still, he started the presentation of the TVC by saying, "Home is the canvas on which your life unfolds." Okay, and I mean, I got goosebumps then because I never thought a paint company, finally, the Putai, right, is taking this kind of an elevated approach to the entire space. Okay, and that's when the Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai campaign happened. And if you remember, I don't know if you've seen it, there are no human figures on the TVC. Okay, there is a monologue. Okay, that's it. And there are shadows on the walls. There are laughters. There are people speaking, but there are no human figures. It's just the home. So the ad is an embodiment of the line that home is the canvas on which your life unfolds, because that entire sequence was about things that happen in the house. सिर्फ यहीं पे रोटियां गिन के नहीं बनती, इंडिया हारते हारते सिर्फ यहीं से क्यों जीत जाता है. Okay, and so on and so forth. And that was the start of the change in positioning. From the transition was from paint functional, like she said, Asian Paints oil and gas, like the like Vijay says, right, ये है oil बेचते हैं और paint बेचते हैं. To color, लाल है रंग प्यार का, पीला है रंग खुशी का, that's early 2000. To owning home as a space. Okay, and that's when I entered Asian Paints, and I was blown away in marketing, and all these hotshot brand managers, launching products across India, talking about their launches, colorful stories, and I was, like I told you, I was impressed by the way that they go about things. And of course, the project was rigorous. Okay, and a lot of questions, a lot of ifs and buts, a lot of checks. Okay, when I look back now, apart from the project, that's one thing which really, I liked about the organization. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is the kind of place I like, and I want to make that ad. Okay, because at that point, the research I was doing was going to lead to an ad, and that was my life goal, to eventually come back and make an ad. Okay, and eventually I did get a PPO, and I joined a year back. And coming back to your question, Aditi, when I came back, I was incidentally posted uh, as in the head office as the central coordinator for project sales. We were just entering institutional sales. Okay, and at that point there was a new vertical, which is your B2B sales. Okay, and I entered the organization being the central manager for a new vertical that the organization was creating, and that was as far away from ad making that you could put anybody in Asian Paints. Okay, absolutely other end of it. Okay, and honestly, I was dejected, because if you have an expectation, then you kind of want it to happen. But at that point, we were setting up the B2B business, and it was like a startup within a startup, because the rules were new. Okay, a lot of competition were kind of trying to get in through that route, because we held the market share in the retail space, and a lot of systems, processes, how do you go about it? A lot of those things were happening at that stage. Okay, but because in my mind I had marketing and an ad making thing in my mind, I struggled with it. Okay, I struggled for 3-4 months with it before somebody sat me down and said that you need to go through different stints, you need to go through different experiences before you kind of reach to what maybe even you want, which also may not be right, by the way. Okay, which may be absolutely wrong, because when I look back, I don't think I had a business goal to making an ad. It was about the glamour of making an ad. Okay, so it took me some 3-4 months to kind of reconcile to the fact that I'm not in marketing. At some point I may be, But this is something which is like a startup. You're setting up, or you're creating a new thing which is from scratch, and that's an opportunity to kind of also create something which is amazing. And of course, then it was a totally different experience. But to put it, in a line, my experience was absolutely different from what I had expected it to be from my summer experience. But by the time it ended, it was equally amazing.
So coming to Harsh, he also interned at Asian Paints as an imprints through the imprints program. And made what during the internship made you think that you want to come back to Asian Paints?
So actually, I had a funny story about getting the internship. That there was this epidemic of chickenpox on the IMK campus, and I was the last person to get it. And unfortunately, I got it 2 days before summer placement started. So I was pretty sure that I'm going to have to arrange my own internship, right? I already started tapping into my network, and I practically that time I think IMK didn't have like a day-wise, slot-wise system, and thank God for that. And the FMCG and the supply chain companies only started coming in the second week. I practically negotiated with the doctor to let me out, 1 day before all of the supply chain companies started coming. So I honestly, I was firstly extremely relieved to get placed anywhere at all.
Weren't you scared that you will give chickenpox to the managers coming to interview you?
Yeah, they refused to shake my hand actually when I told them that I just gotten discharged the day at the end of the interview. But what I distinctly remember in the the summer internship was 3 or 4 things stood out for me. One was just the quality of the people that I worked with. Like you could clearly tell that these are extremely sharp people who really know their their content. Uh, and they were very hands-on. They would encourage you to learn in the same way. And my internship was based out of HO and out of 2 or 3 plants, because I was working on automating the materials management process for raw materials at some of our older plants. So I remember when I went to Ankleshwar, and the senior manager there told me, "You want to learn the material management process?" There was a truck at the gate, and he made the cleaner get off the truck and said, "आप बैठो और पूरे truck के साथ चलते जाओ." Right, and you'll understand each and every step of the process. So I found that people were really really sharp, and you had to sort of bring your A game here. At the same time, there was an amazing humility about people, and when Gagan said it, I realized that actually it was psychological safety only. Like everyone was approachable. I could go and have a conversation with anyone. Whatever ideas I bounced off, whether it was at the plants. I also worked very closely with IT for that project. IT, or my own guide at the HO, like whoever I spoke with was very very open, and very approachable. The last thing I think that really struck me was the amount of autonomy and accountability that a summer trainee was given. So everyone, there was a lot of seriousness about actually making my project a success, and they gave me a lot of freedom and space to do what I wanted. So at one point I was actually negotiating with a barcode vendor, and I had heard a lot of stories from my peers where they said that हम तो बैठे हैं ऑफिस में बैठे हैं, we're doing something, we're making recommendations, we're making a deck. But I was actually talking to a vendor because I had to do a cost benefit analysis, and I had to get quotes, and I thought that someone will come with me in that meeting because I'm too junior here. But I actually went and did that meeting myself and did one round of negotiations. So that for me really struck me, what kind of accountability and autonomy is being given. And one thing that I think the cherry on the cake was that when the project was done, my final evaluation was done, my guide had he called me after the internship was technically over, because he kept a review with the senior managers at 3 plants where this project was supposed to be implemented. So I told him, but review to ho gaya. So he said, nahi, that review was your evaluation. Abhi, we want to evaluate your work, because these are the guys who are going to have to implement that project. Now that really blew me away. Ki, this is a place where people are really intent. So yeah, I think that's what made me really want to come back. And then I got a PPO, and here I am.
I'll ask my question to Gagandeep next. So you mentioned you walked into Asian Paints, and to that world, perhaps even you saw it as a legacy paint company. So today the same organization has morphed into an end-to-end powerhouse covering decor, lighting, luxury retail, and full home experiences. From the inside, beyond the brand campaigns, when did you first feel the ground actually shifting towards this new identity? And did those ideas sound ambitious internally at the time, or generally just crazy? Like, were they open to taking this up?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, a lot of things push an organization towards different things. Okay, away, in a way from towards experimenting, towards pivoting. Okay, so for example, when I joined in 2006, we were leaders for quite some time. Okay, and at that point, there was this huge influx of organized retail. Okay, and a lot of Home Depots were setting up shop here, and there was a big threat, and it was not a paint competitor threat. Okay, it was a channel threat, wherein once the large big boxes set shop in India, like they've done in the West, then your margins are squeezed. Okay, then they have bargaining power, and like the West, then you become you get Walmartized in a way. Okay, and at that point, the organization then, as you know, the response to that started pivoting by not partnering with them, but by elevating the regular dealer network towards being a showroom. Okay, so that's one of the first, I remember, large pivots that we had done. And I'm not talking about the core areas, like a lot of products launched, a lot of ad campaigns, Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai, I told you, change in positioning. Okay, the core work continued, but one key pivot that happened at that point was then evolving our dealer network to be a elevated consumer experience, and therefore the big boxes not being a necessity at all. When I just came in, there was a team who was working only on that. Okay, and as that succeeded, the next trigger for our pivot came in from the point of view of customer complaints. Okay, now when a customer complains, typically there are three options that can go wrong. The paint could have been faulty, the wall could have been faulty, or the painter could have been faulty. Okay, and 99.9% of the times it's never the paint. Okay, because we are the ones judging it, right? So it was never the paint, and we were always to box the complaint as substrate issues, wall issues. Okay, now here comes our current CEO. At that time, he was the head of marketing. He said, why don't we take this customer complaint and we solve it for the country? Okay, and that kickstarted our pivot to waterproofing. That let's stop talking about ये हमारी गलती नहीं है. Let's own the गलती. Okay, let's put out a solution which tomorrow the consumer needs for this kind of a space. Okay, and that, by the way, it's a big responsibility because paint, you still are operating at a 50-60 micron kind of a thickness. Waterproofing, you're getting into the civil structure. Okay, and that earmarked our pivot to waterproofing and subsequently to construction chemicals. Okay, so paint, positioning, channel, okay, which is organized retail, then moving on to waterproofing and construction chemicals. These are the pivots that, step by step happened in the organization. And then from nowhere we came and we became like the number one in waterproofing across the company, across the country. And waterproofing plus painting became a thing. Okay, today waterproofing plus painting is a thing that earlier never used to exist in the country. And that requires a completely different set of chemistries, completely different set of products which are required to kind of deliver that. Now, as we pivoted towards some of these adjacencies, okay, and then we also got into painting tools because again, ये खराब finish आई है क्योंकि brush खराब है. ठीक है, we'll give you a brush. Okay, why don't we make a brush? Why don't we make a roller? Why don't we make a sprayer? Okay, and we started getting into all adjacencies which tomorrow is able to give that customer a home which जो उसकी कहानी बोल सके, हर घर कुछ कहता है. So being true to that, we said we'll cover all our bases. Okay, and we started pivoting towards all of these. And as we went on this journey and we found success in all of them and we became market leader in all of them in record time. Okay, and by the way, after waterproofing, we entered into construction chemicals, which is like the next level of waterproofing, which is you're waterproofing a home, you're waterproofing a tunnel. You're partnering with the government to ensure that your infrastructure projects are going off on well. Okay. Now, after those pivots is when we kind of said that agar har ghar kuch kehta hai and we want to be in the home, then we have to move beyond the walls to within the walls as well. Okay, and that's when the pivot to home decor happened. Okay, and that's where currently we are kind of investing and taking that forward and scaling it up, which is the home decor space. So
Hello, Gagan. So you're working from a long time with Asian Paint, so you had the opportunity to work with the great ad man Piyush Pandey sir, if I'm not wrong. Then, so how was his thinking? Like in advertisement, we pick a person, a celebrity, and then just think about the products and the name of the brand. But this campaign and about Piyush Pandey, everything is different. So what's his thinking? If you can share. And secondly, Asian Paint is good in everything, in research, in advertisement. So how they manage to just keep on evolving in this current world? So what are the things they are doing? So
Yeah. See, I'll tell you one thing which really stood out for Piyush Pandey. By the way, he's a great ad man, and it's not just Asian Paints. It's not just Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai. All your legendary Fevicol campaigns. Okay, a whole host of campaigns that he's done have been absolutely amazing. Okay, and one reason why that happens, and no, very few people are able to do it, or rather nobody's been able to do it, is he's so connected to the Indian roots. Okay, he gets the pulse. Okay, and I was too junior when the ad campaign broke, but I remember Amit, who's the current CEO and MD, he shared the original text which Piyush had written, the lines of Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai one. Okay, and he had written it in a burst of creativity. Okay, but only when you are so connected, okay, to India, to the Indian story, okay, what Indians need, okay, how do they live, okay, what moves them, what are their trials and tribulations, only when you're immersed yourself in that can you come out with something like that. Okay, and when you come to think of it, and I don't know how many of you are from outside Bombay, वो there are homes like that. हर मोहल्ले में घर ऐसा होता है जहाँ पे all those lines are true, and every house in the mohalla wants to be that house. Okay, it's such an amazing insight, but you can't have that insight unless you are from that world, connected to that world, rooted from that world. You can't have an, I mean, somebody like me, or any convent educated guy trying to understand the Indian hinterland and making something out of it. It'll be very fake. Okay, so one thing which really worked and what made him great is his of course his creative thought process, but he immersing himself and coming in from that world and bringing that world forward. Okay, that this is the real deal. Okay, so that's a very brief experience. And second is, like you're saying, we do a lot of good things. By the way, we fail also in a lot of things. Okay, and let me tell you, we've had a string of failures in many products, and including many I've done. By the way, that's the mark of an organization that also experiments. Okay, the only mark of an organization that also likes to experiment is failure. There is no other mark, because you can't succeed 10 out of 10 times. Only when you have spectacular failures do you know that you've also spectacularly experimenting. So we have also failed multiple times, but yes, we make it a point to learn from them, and try to do things. But the home decor pivot itself is outrageous. Okay, because that's something which you're not trying to replicate, something that's done. There is no home decor player in India which is more than 1,000 crores. Okay, because it's unorganized, and the pivot itself is outrageous from that point of view. But to answer your question, a lot of things are happening now in terms of we investing with respect to strengthening our core paints, because for almost 25-30 years we operated as a majority market share. Okay, now we have new players entering, JSW, Birla, and they are entering from the point of view of not one product. JSW has steel, cement, paint. Birla has cement, paint. So, and there are inherent strengths to that. So there is that need to again go back to your hill that you've built your strengths on and further strengthen it. So a lot of things are happening around that to re-strengthen that while we make our pivot to decor.
So the next question is for Harsh. Asian Paints is regularly cited as one of the India's best supply chain companies, and it's also used as a case study in business schools. Now that you're inside it, do you think what actually makes it work at the level it does, and does it live up to the reputation you had or it before you joined? And also for the students in the room who still picture the supply chain is primarily as logistics function, what would generally change that picture?
To answer your question, it does live up to whatever it was touted to be when I was on campus. Uh, in my view, some of the things that make it work and make it like this supply chain, which is touted as a case study. So an overriding thing, and this is not just restricted to supply chain, is just this insatiable itch to keep getting better, to keep pivoting, like Gagan was just talking about, and to keep I have sometimes you feel like you're really nitpicking in that last 1% which is left or last 2% which is left, right? I'm talking about things which are already stable and running, like, regular product categories, etc. But there is this insatiable need. I've never been in any promise setting or goal setting exercise where people have said nahi, theek hai, we'll just sustain it. Like, there's always this push to do better. That's anyways not restricted to supply chain. Coming to supply chain, I think one thing that the top thing I think that works is just the amount of meticulousness and data, and just the focus on building and collecting data, maintaining the integrity of that data, designing extremely sophisticated planning systems, whether it's demand planning and forecasting, or it's production planning, or dispatch planning, or even like control towers which we have on the procurement side, etc. There is a lot of effort and focus which goes into putting structures, systems, processes, not being dependent on the discipline of one person or a team, and making it as foolproof as possible, and investing in technology. Like, a lot of you would have probably read about this, that we had the first supercomputer and only IIT Bombay or someone else was using it in the 70s, right? I've seen even in tough times, even during COVID, even during recessionary periods, there's never a time when we've not invested in the next planning engine, or like further enhancing our capabilities, right? Even from an IT standpoint.
Perfect. Does anyone have a question
Yeah,
for Harsh?
sorry, before question,
Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to just reiterate, the actual rock stars of Asian Paints is manufacturing and supply chain and Hersh and his colleagues. Okay, and let me clarify why. Okay, we've moved from 3,000 crores top line in 2006 to 35,000 crore top line as of last year. That's a 10x increase. Okay, and yes, part of it is the Indian growth story. Okay, but a lot of it is what the backend enables. Okay, and I mean, we shouldn't even call it backend. Every 3 to 4 years, Harsh and his colleagues set up a plant which is the world's biggest. The last 3 plants that have been set up have been the world's biggest decorative plants. Okay, so none of that, and nothing we do in marketing, okay, or sales, or what Piyush Pandey, with all due respect, okay, is possible without this. So you are selling out crores of emulsions or one product across the country with the same quality, same perfection, okay, at that scale, with the number of SKUs you have. Okay, it is impossible to do even half of that without that being enabled. So a lot of people, and when I was at this when I was sitting where you're sitting, for me the organization is the ad, because that's all I'm exposed to. Okay, and I request you to remove that screen. Okay, even in marketing, like I was that summer training, मुझे ad banana है. Even in marketing, ad आप नहीं बनाते हो. Your job is not to make the ad. Your job is not to write those lines or shoot the video. It's not that. Okay, even in marketing, your job is consumer inciting, new product launches, okay, and manage and getting into the world of the customer. And then you give a brief to an agency who makes the ad. Okay, and I entered MBA with this thing. I thought you guys should be very clear. Core business, these are all layers in which it is wrapped. The core business doesn't run on this.
So
Yeah.
I had a question for you. You mentioned, right, ki when we move from agency to the brand side of things, you generally don't end up creating a content yourself and you just completely outsource it to the agency. Now, when you move from, like, just giving you a context, I'm from the agency and now I move to the brand side of things through an MBA. So my first job will genuinely be creating all of this or understanding more about the ground realities by taking up a sales job, because honestly not a lot of us like going to the sales market and doing sales, right? So is Asian Paints pretty open to helping me understand that, okay, I'm someone who probably does not want to understand more about the consumer specifically because I'm not someone who's inclined towards sales but towards brand marketing? So is this shift actually possible
Yeah.
at Asians?
I'll give you 2 examples which will help
Yeah.
you clarify. And firstly, congratulations on moving up the value chain. So one example I'll give you, what do you do in marketing, okay, that you don't do in agency, for example, that transition. And which is important for all of you to know, because again, I was also in that mindset of ad making. When we entered waterproofing, okay, and I was lucky enough to be, in that team which was looking at waterproofing, new things, okay. We did a full market study and I led that study on what are the problems of waterproofing, okay. And then we figured out there is a waterproofing that happens which is from the walls. ठीक है, फटा हुआ pipe है, ground waterizing है. One waterproofing happens because of rain, okay, from outside sources. One waterproofing happens because of cracks, okay, and we identified that and we started getting into chemistries to resolve it. And we figured in the market, see, people figure out solutions. They figured out cement में ये मिला लो, वो मिला लो, okay, वो करके कुछ करके waterproofing हो गई, okay. After doing a research for 6 months, we finally distilled down the research and consumer asked to one line. Waterproofing बहुत ऑप्शंस हैं, लेकिन कोई ये गारंटी नहीं देता है सर. कोई गारंटी नहीं देता है कि चलेगा कि नहीं चलेगा. लगा ऑप्शन बहुत हैं, लेकिन किसी को बोलो गारंटी दोगे, गारंटी नहीं देंगे. ओके, नाउ रीचिंग दैट, इट मे सीम ऑब्वियस, okay, in hindsight, but you have to go through that research and to distill it down to that one insight ke we will come out with a waterproofing range which will fill that gap and which will give that guarantee. Okay, now coming back to your question, this is the insight that we gave Ogilvy. Okay, ye hai. Now we need, now what does agency do? Okay, they make a creative which brings this out in a very interesting way, right? Now imagine somebody like me goes and makes a 30-second presentation on it. Okay, will you watch that ad? No, right? You have to make it a creative one. You have to make it a fun thing. You have to make it like you're watching the program itself, right? Now, what Ogilvy did is they made an amazing ad, okay, where a tenant walks into a home, okay, and वो घर में waterproofing problem है, and the landlord says कि the broker is also there, okay, and the broker, tenant says कि waterproofing आप ठीक कर दोगे. कहते ठीक कर दूंगा, गारंटी देता हूँ. तो कहते और अगर वापस आ गई तो कहते वापस आ गई तो घर आपका. ओके, टेनेंट बोलता है वो घर आपका. एंड देन द ब्रोकर हियर्स दिस एंड ही सेज कि मैं डबल रेंट देता हूँ, आप इनको छोड़ो, लेकिन वाटरप्रूफिंग अगर लीकेज आई तो घर मेरा. दिस इज डन. ओके, एंड देन दिस इज वेयर द एड स्टार्ट्स. ओके, देन आफ्टर अ ईयर दैट गाय इज जस्ट सिटिंग इन अ स्टूल इनसाइड द रूम एंड जस्ट सीइंग, एंड द लैंडलॉर्ड लुक्स इन एंड कहता आया. वो कहता नहीं आया. Okay, then he's pouring water on the terrace, year 2. कुछ जाए नीचे. And then again he comes, walks by. आया? Saying नहीं आया. Okay, third one, he's taking water jets and he's putting it on the wall. Exaggerated. In commercial, you need to exaggerate, right? फिर again he walks by saying आया. And he starts crying कि नहीं आया, कि इधर भी नहीं आया. Okay. And the entire ad is आया, नहीं आया, नहीं आया. Okay, they made it into a beautiful short messaging which people then digested. Okay, so this is the transition, okay, between what a marketer does and what an agency does. Got it? You get the brief, you don't get the insight. Okay, coming to sales and marketing. Now, if you don't do sales, for example, and I launched this and I was responsible for this amazing failure, okay, in spite of being from sales, by the way, is I launched a one-coat product, okay, and boy, bottom of the pyramid hai, okay, we felt that 50% is labor cost. Okay, 50% is material cost. So why don't, instead of making the material cheaper, you give a one coat. Normally 3 coat लगते हैं, 3 बार labor लगता है, right? So you give a costlier product, but 1 coat दो, तो labor आधा हो गया. Okay, customer को तो it's cheaper, right? Amazing, brilliant. I am pass out. What an insight. All the Excels tally. Okay, flopped miserably. I launched it. Okay, and I forgot my sales days. Okay, and I really forgot what is it actually happening in the market, which is a painter, okay, charges per coat to the customer. वो 2 रुपए per coat लेता है. जैसे ही आप उसको 1 coat कर दोगे, what happens to his value of this on the site? Where he is earning 2 lakhs on a site on labor, how much will he earn now? Half or lesser, right? 1 lakh. What is going to be his natural response? मजा नहीं है प्रोडक्ट में. ठीक है, ये हल्का है, आप कुछ भी बोल लो, 1 कोट 3 कोट ही लगते हैं. ओके, नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन यू डायरेक्टली कम टू मार्केटिंग इज यू मिस आउट व्हाट द चैनल इज डिलीवरिंग, एंड दैट्स ट्रू फॉर एफएमसीजी आल्सो, बाय द वे. Okay, you miss out on product placements, you miss out on trade marketing, you miss out on barriers which the trade can put in. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend 10 years in sales, but I would definitely recommend, you know, at least 3-4 years in sales for you to effectively, that's not your core purpose, but you will definitely be aware of barriers that will be put in by the sales channel if you don't, if you do it.
As I could figure out, like about 70% of the value chain is supply chain. And it, as you reiterated also, core part of what the company does, a lot of it may be forward integration or backward integration or strategy. Supply chain forms the backbone of it. But of late, there has been not of late, it's been a trend. And as you mentioned, your CEO also comes from a marketing background, a marketer. I am personally joining SJM, so I'm commonly known for operations. How can we extrapolate our career to get into the CXO lane or fast track? Because mostly we see that marketers make it to the top, but supply chain somehow lags behind, especially in FMCG and FMCD. Could you both please provide your insights into this?
Yeah. So also before that, since you briefly mentioned between the sales and marketing dilemma, no, a lot of people say sales karna hai, marketing karna hai, made for sales, I made for marketing. I think that question is inconsequential and irrelevant, because after 15 years, okay, should be a business head, okay, and if you're not a business head, then you should question yourself. Whether you take the sales route or the marketing route, you eventually have to be a business head, and therefore you need to see some of both. You may be good in one, better in another. Okay, but eventually you have to be a business head. And at a business head level, sales and marketing and finance and supply chain are critical, at least working understanding of them. Okay, so for those who are confused on sales or marketing, I would say do both. Okay, unless you're in a very, very large purist, like for example, P&G, I keep hearing it's marketing is only marketing, sales is only sales. But in most organizations, business head roles happen to you in say 12 to 15 years, and it's important you see both, and therefore sales or marketing is actually inconsequential, because you don't want to end your career as head of sales or head of marketing. You want to end your career as business head, right? Coming to your question, I think from the supply chain and the marketing point of view, I think one important thing is exposure. Okay, typically what happens is, or any organization, the people who get in the money, okay, get to decide a lot of things. Yeah, and that's how, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, the world works, because the people who are getting in the money, the ones who are selling, okay, are the ones who are keeping the lights on. Okay, now yes, it's because of, like I said, the real rock stars are supply chain, manufacturing, okay, and a lot of people from say finance, HR, okay, marketing. But even in marketing and sales, people who are getting in the money are the sales guys. Okay, so the hierarchy, the natural hierarchy of things eventually becomes that. People who are getting in the money are closest to the customer. And what happens is, when you're sitting in a room with the head of supply chain, head of finance, head of sales, head of marketing, what do you do next comes from whom? Comes from whom? Sales. Why? Not because he's the most brilliant guy. Because he's closest to the customer. Okay, the organization needs to move with the customer. The guy closest to the customer is the sales guy, and therefore there is an inherently first amongst equal status that person gets. Okay, and coming back to your question on how do you make it to it, you need to have that exposure then. You need to consciously then move across, get that exposure, so that you are able to put yourself in that position.
You have to, do these stints, right? There's nothing stopping you. And I remember, I was coincidentally, when I was on a flight I was coming back to Bombay to give the CAT exam, and I met this person, and I had this IMS ka book, and I was going through the material, and the guy next to me said ki CAT likhne ja rahe ho? I said haan. He said wahi ABC jana hoga? I said yes ABC jana hai. So he said one thing which really calmed me down in that moment, and I'm going to say it to you, that he said that if you true potential cannot be restrained. Okay? So if you have it in you, you will reach where you must, right? Coming back to your question, it's Asian Paints is a great example of where these stints are actually possible. I cannot speak for other organizations, but our current CEO Amit, he's spent a stint as a factory head and of our plant in Greater Noida. The current head of our supply chain large part of his experience has been in IT. The current head of IT was in IT, moved to supply chain, handled two senior level stints in supply chain, has moved back to IT. Yeah, Ali, the person who actually, I interned under and who is instrumental in me being here. He spent a stint in HR. He spent a stint in one of our joint venture businesses on the industrial side of things. So it is possible. It's really if you're keen to take it up, within Asian Paints, it's definitely possible.
So Nilaya Anthology is an angle, is more than just a new store. It is a signal of how fundamentally the organization has shifted. When you were building that, what was the internal conversation like? Was there resistance about people asking, why are we doing this? And 5 or 10 years ago, would anyone inside Asian Paints have imagined that this luxury retail experience was the actual direction of the company which was going?
Yeah. See, the mark of any healthy organization is at any point of time there should be a lot of people asking, why are we doing this? Okay. Because that just tells you that it's a healthy environment. Okay. And that also happened for Nilaya Anthology. The genesis to this was, again, coming back to home and partnering, Indian homes. And by the way, one of the aspirations that we have as an organization is, can Indian homes be the best design spaces in the world? Okay, as an extension to Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai. Because Indian homes have so much to say, but they have such limited tools to express themselves. Okay, and it's corporates like us who are at fault. Okay, that's what we are trying to change. Coming back to Nilaya Anthology, we felt this stories that homes have to say. At the top end, while we are doing a lot of things at the mass market level, okay, in terms of the home decor foray that we are today having under Beautiful Homes, at the top end, in terms of the luxury space, how are things working out there? When we again 4 years back is when Amit called me and he said, "Ke yahan kuch karna hai." Okay, and then we started getting into that space, okay, and to understand ke wo luxury end pe kya ho raha hai. And we found that there is a huge colonial hangover. Okay, luxury in home decor is imported, nothing else. Okay, it's either imported from Italy or it's imported from Germany. And one entrepreneur will get that brand in a small place here in fact, Lower Parel, okay, or Andheri, and similar cities across the country. And the HNI and UHNI, okay, of India, okay, and they'll go and they'll buy it from there. All of them do it through an architect, okay. None of the architects go to these places for inspiration. Every architect, the colonial hangover, by the way, is not just for product. The colonial hangover also is for inspiration on what new things can I get from my project as an architect. Okay. For all these journeys, the architect would travel abroad. Okay. Or follow international designers, international, architects. So we felt that if we want to do something in that space and we want to shake up that space, we just can't build a bigger showroom. Okay, ठीक है, corporate है, पैसा है, किसी ने छोटा showroom किया, 1,000 square feet का, let's open a 50,000 square feet showroom. Okay, we said we don't want to do that. Okay, we want to be part of the inspiration journey of the Indian architect. Okay, that tomorrow at a global level, if he's going to a Chelsea design district, okay, if he's going to a Shoreditch design week, if he's going to a Milan Salone, okay, Nilaya Anthology should be part of the same circuit for that designer. Okay, and therefore, how do you put out your space which can enable that for an Indian architect? That they go there without the client to get inspired about their next project. Okay, and which is really deep diving into the world of design and culture, not just design.
So I think now at the end of this session, everyone can understand that Asian Paints is not just a paint company, but a creative powerhouse, and it's already in a constant state of reinvention.
First 3 months, I will tell you, if you are able to work hard, there will be sleepless nights. I think the first 3 months, I can tell you, those were the most difficult months of my life till now also, I will tell. The first 3 months. But if you sail through that, then that gives you confidence ki ab to at least you will be able to do a lot of things if you are able to do that.
For me personally, what worked out was, again, I was also without any work experience coming into MBA. A lot of these societies start operating on the campus and they start organizing, mock GDs or mock interviews. And there, if you put yourself out there, you might realize that maybe GD is one area where I'm not that good at. And then you will have a subsequent series of options available where you can again go there, put yourself in those positions and become confident and become better at it as the time progresses. I think that is what will give you the confidence that yes, you belong and you are going to do wonderful as you have been doing till now.
It's not just about if you're the smartest person in the room, right? It's not about if you're the one with the maximum ideas, with the maximum range of solutions that you're able to give, but it's also about who shows up consistently, right? I was on my internship after my internship had ended, right? So there were 1 month post my 2 month stint. I was still in conversation with my manager, with my guide as to how can we implement this, how can we make sure that it's actually getting utilized, whether it's not getting feedback is getting coming in or not, right? And how well you integrate with the system also matters. It's something that is being viewed, it's something that is being evaluated. You showing up, like I said, consistently across those 2 months is what matters, because it's very easy to lose hope.